I'm currently at my husband's childhood home where he grew up. Nobody lives here anymore, and we live elsewhere. The house is run down, and it's obvious no one has lived here for decades. It's straight out of a ghost story. I step onto the property with a purpose in mind. After searching thoroughly for over an hour, one area looks oddly out of place. A part of the garden is inexplicably paved with concrete. There's nothing else that seems unusual. I approach it, holding my breath. Could it be here? After getting someone to break the concrete, I swing the shovel I had prepared. The ground hasn't been used for years. The soil is compacted and extremely hard. Sweat breaks out with every swing. Before I know it, the sun that was high in the sky is now setting. Maybe that's enough for today. Thinking it's my last swing, the shovel snaps into the soil with a crack. I quickly pull out the shovel and start digging desperately with my hands. Please let it be a lie. Please let it be a lie. I wished to myself. But a few minutes later, I let out an involuntary cry. My name is Sally, and I'm just an ordinary office worker in the region. Life has been uneventful. I work as usual and go home as usual, but I'm content with my daily life. Since I've been living alone since graduating from high school, I don't speak to anyone if I don't go out on weekends. I've always loved talking, so these silent weekends are torture for me. Being chatty is my only talent and passion. Today, as usual, I finish my morning tasks. To take a lunch break, I talk to the guy next to me. All right, Justin, let's grab some lunch.
Is it noon already? I just have a bit more to do on this task. Well, I can finish it this afternoon.
Justin yawns and stretches in his chair. Justin has been my closest friend since we were new hires. We started talking a lot because we sat next to each other during training. The trainers even noticed us and paired us up whenever they could. I've never had a boyfriend, so I guess I'm not very resistant to romance. At one point, I even thought, could this be fate? But I heard during training that Justin has had a girlfriend since high school. My romantic notions ended in 4 days during the training period. Since then, I've just treated him like any other colleague. That's why, in the 3 years since we met, we've never gone out for drinks or outings after work or on weekends. It wouldn't be right to his girlfriend, and I don't want to cause any misunderstandings. Justin gets up from his chair.
All right, let's go.
He heads towards the office exit as if to say he'll leave me behind if I don't hurry. I follow him to the cafeteria. Our company has a cafeteria, and around this time, it fills up with people from the entire building. Today is no different, bustling as usual. I pick a chicken bowl, and Justin chooses a noodle dish with vegetable. We sit facing each other.
Listen to this. I've been seeing ghosts in my neighborhood recently. But here's the funny thing.
Yeah. Justin seems to have a sixth sense. I can't see ghosts at all, so I find his stories hard to believe. I'm tired of hearing about them every time. After Justin finishes his story, I try to change the subject. Hey Justin, what's been going on with your girlfriend lately? I haven't heard anything about her. Justin, who was slurping his noodles vigorously, suddenly stopped moving. I tilted my head in curiosity. Then, after chewing his noodles, he turned to me with a somber expression. Seeing his indescribable look, I grimaced.
We broke up.
I had a hunch but thought to myself, I knew it, and looked up at the sky. Though not the sky, but ceiling, actually. I turned back to face Justin. He told me that it started with small misunderstandings. Differences in lifestyle, ways of thinking, stuff like that. The breakup wasn't recent. It happened 2 months ago. Justin said he wasn't bothered by it anymore, but as soon as I asked, he began to spill everything. Well, they had been together for over 4 years, so I guess 2 months isn't enough to heal a heart. Maybe talking about it helped him feel a bit better? When we headed back to work that afternoon, Justin seemed a bit more dignified. From that day on, we grew suddenly closer. I found myself rekindling feelings for Justin that I had forgotten. I went all out and confessed my feelings to him. Justin, still nursing his emotional wounds, told me, "I'm not in the mood to date anyone right now," and he turned me down several times. But I kept pushing, and eventually, Justin gave in, and we started dating. Our relationship turned out to be really good. We never had any major fights, and when we reached the 5-year mark, we got married. We were both in our mid-20s and didn't have much money. We decided to save for our future children instead of having a wedding. Still, I felt we needed to make a formal announcement, so I suggested we go and greet Justin's mother formally, which is why we visited his family home today. His mother, Sarah, welcomed us warmly when we got my in-laws' house.
Welcome, Sally.
It wasn't far from where we lived, but it had been a while since we visited, so I was a bit nervous. Detached houses are really nice, I remarked as we walked down the hallway. I remember learning about a year into our relationship that Justin was raised by a single mom, so it didn't feel odd that Sarah lived alone. Sitting in the living room, we formally announced our marriage. Sarah was thrilled. "That's wonderful." Then we spent the time chatting about everything from Justin's elementary school days to high school events. Justin looked a bit awkward the whole time. As we reminisced, it had gotten quite dark outside, so we left my in-laws' house. Justin and I both loved kids. We had been saving for our future children even before we got married. But it had been hard to conceive, and we were almost giving up when I felt unwell recently and went to the doctor, only to find out I was pregnant. It had been 3 years since we greeted Sarah with our marriage. Of course, both Justin and I were overjoyed. When we told Sarah, who knew our circumstances, she cried with happiness. We didn't know the baby's gender yet, but we started thinking of names and preparing baby items like cribs. We suddenly became very busy.
If anything happens to me,
Justin had taken out a substantial life insurance policy on himself. People become parents like this, huh? Watching Justin, I was impressed. I thought I needed to do my best too, and struggled every day. About a year later, on a certain day,
all right,
said my husband, now changed his cloth into an athletic wear, heading towards the front door. I followed him to the entrance, carrying our daughter, Lucy.
I'll be back soon.
Putting on his running shoes and looking back at me. Take care, see you soon.
Sure thing.
He nodded and ran off on his usual running route. Before our daughter was born, I used to run with him. It's a scenic route that goes around the park at the midpoint and around our neighborhood. A route that even I, as a woman, could easily complete in an hour and a half. But that day, he didn't return after 2 hours, nor after 3. Usually, He would be back in less than an hour. He typically leaves his cell phone and wallet at home when he goes running. So there was no way he could have made a detour. I even called his mother's house to check, but he hadn't stopped by there either. At this point, even I, who usually don't worry too much, started to feel anxious and irritated. "Where on earth did you go? Come back soon." While soothing Lucy, all I could do was wait. "Justin, when you get back, you're in for a lecture," I muttered with a slight laugh, trying to dispel my own anxiety. Glancing at the clock, it was now 9 p.m. The sun had long set, and darkness filled the view outside the window. Dinner, which had been laid out on the table, had gone completely cold. Regaining a bit of composure from seeing the time, I hurried to the police station with Lucy still in my arms to file a missing person report. I called his mother's house a second time just in case, but he hadn't returned there. My voice sounded tired.
It's tough being alone, isn't it? You must be exhausted from worrying too much. Why don't you stay over at my place tonight?
Sarah spoke kindly over the phone. I went back home once, posted a note on the front door for Justin, and then headed to his mother's house. However, the next day came and went without any word from my husband or the police. Unable to just sit still, I left Lucy with my mother-in-law, Sarah, and searched all over town. Police stations, hospitals, acquaintances, neighbors. I asked everyone. "I've been searching everywhere. Where did you go, Justin?" The thought that something might have happened to him crossed my mind as one possibility. That's why I covered all the local news since he disappeared. Despite knowing it was a nuisance, I even went to the newspaper publisher. Still, everyone just shook their heads, and I couldn't get any information. A month passed without any sign of Justin. Since then, both Sarah and I have been running around town gathering information, but to no avail. Not knowing where Justin is or what he's doing, we were both exhausted. If he's alive, I hope he's living happily somewhere, I thought, but both Sarah and I knew he wasn't someone who would just disappear without a word. Are we never going to find any clue, never see Justin again?
That's not true. He's not that fragile.
Sarah reassured me with a slightly trembling voice. Deep down, she must want to express her own fears. Seeing how strong Sarah was trying to be, I felt truly sorry.
Well, maybe Lucy can stay with me until she starts elementary school. It must be tough for you alone, Sally.
Honestly, I was filled with anxiety about the future, and I thought I might as well stay with Sarah for a while. After some thought, I decided to accept her offer. "Thank you so much." She nodded with a smile. I guess she was just as anxious.
Can I discuss one more thing while we're on the subject? It's not exactly the best time to bring it up, but...
Her serious expression made me serious too.
Actually, I'm not Justin's biological mother. I'm just the one who raised him.
What, you mean? I couldn't hide my shock at this sudden revelation. Justin's biological mother was Sarah's sister, Emily. Emily had been a free spirit from a young age, often causing trouble for those around her. Even as an adult, her personality didn't change much. She was always true to herself. In high school, Emily began to hang out with a wrong crowd. Her entire personality changed, and getting involved in theft and assault became the norm. The police were always on her case, and it wasn't unusual for her to be detained. Emily got pregnant at 19, largely because she was out drinking every day despite being a minor. Apparently, even Emily herself doesn't know who the father is.
Emily probably didn't want to have Justin. That's why I took him in.
One Thanksgiving Day, after not showing up since graduating high school, Emily showed up with Justin to visit. The relatives were shocked, saying, "Is this that Emily?" But they quickly accepted and doted on Justin. Then, suddenly, Emily shouted and threw Justin against the wall. Sarah had to restrain an agitated Emily and tend to Justin's injuries. That's when Sarah noticed bruises on his arms. Upon further inspection, she found bruises all over his body, indicating that Justin was being routinely abused by Emily.
It was tough after that. Imagine, a single woman who's never had a boyfriend suddenly becomes the mother of a 5-year-old.
Sarah said with a wry smile. Thanks to Sarah, Justin, who had been looking gloomy, gradually started to show a happier and brighter face. Justin thinks of you as his mother, Sarah. I'm sure he was happy with you.
That's comforting to hear.
Sarah smiled. But a question arose in my mind. Why did you decide to tell me this story now? Sarah's face turned serious again.
Actually, Emily visited my house the day before Justin disappeared, even though we hadn't seen each other for years.
As I listened quietly, thinking things over, Sarah continued.
So I've been thinking maybe Emily has something to do with Justin's disappearance. I've been focusing on relatives this past month.
Did you find anything? Sarah shook her head.
I even checked the family home just in case. Nothing.
The family home. Isn't this the family home? Sarah explained that there's another house where she and Justin were raised, separate from this one. Curious, I asked for the address of that house. The next day, I went there to see if I could find anything. But my search turned up nothing and ended in vain. 5 years have passed since then, with no leads. Our daughter, who was very young back then, is now a grade schooler. Last year, when she started elementary school, we officially began living with Sarah. We'd been sort of cohabiting since my husband's disappearance, and honestly, her help with housework and childcare has been a godsend. When Sarah suggested we live together, I had no reason to refuse, so we made it official. My daughter, who adores her grandmother, was thrilled. Our life changed on a parents' day at her school. After class, we walked home together. But that day, I felt like taking a little detour. Let's take a different route home today, I suggested, and we veered off the usual path onto a small side street. Then, amidst the fields, I saw a house that looked familiar. Is that? As we got closer, I realized it was my mother-in-law's childhood home. Wow. It was already in disrepair when we visited 5 years ago, but now it looked even more derelict, as if it could collapse at any moment. This is your father's real childhood home. She might get confused if I told her that. As we were about to walk past without stopping, my daughter suddenly stopped, tugging at my hand.
Daddy is there.
I was stunned by her remark. What? I exclaimed, looking around, but there was no sign of my husband or anyone else. There's no one there. But my daughter turned to me with a serious look.
Daddy is in that house.
She insisted, pointing at my mother-in-law's house. Startled, I questioned her. Are you seeing Daddy's ghost? She nodded. Apparently, my daughter has had a sense for spirits since she started speaking, often saying she could see people where there was no one. I was initially skeptical, but when I mentioned it to Sarah, she quickly resolved my doubts. I remembered Justin used to talk about seeing ghosts too. It seems that, like my daughter, Justin had a unique sensitivity from a young age. I remembered thinking that she truly inherited her father's psychic ability. Like father, like daughter. I hurried home and shared the incident with Sarah, who was visibly shocked. Fortunately, the house is now in her name, having been passed down as part of an inheritance when her father died. I immediately drove there, determined to investigate. While searching around my mother-in-law's childhood home, I found a patch that was paved with concrete. The rest is just dirt. This concrete wasn't there 5 years ago. With no other changes noticeable, I intuitively felt something might be beneath and called Sarah to explain. She had someone she knew break up the concrete with a jackhammer and then leave. Confused by the situation, her acquaintance shrugged as he left. I removed the broken concrete and dug into the earth beneath. How many hours had passed, I wasn't sure, but as the day turned to dusk, I continued digging. This isn't it, is it? I muttered to myself as I swung the shovel. A small crack sounded from the tip of the shovel. I hastily pulled it out and started digging by hand, uncovering more and more white objects. I dug frantically, forgetting myself. Of course, I was scared. I deeply hoped it was all a lie. However, when I sighed, I couldn't help but be certain. Sarah came running to me as soon as she and the police arrived.
Sally.
I had called her right after contacting the police, who had already cordoned off the area with tape. Justin was here. I managed to say with a trembling voice. Sarah gently spoke to me while rubbing my back.
But it's not confirmed it was Justin yet.
No, those bones are definitely Justin's. I found a wedding ring with our names engraved inside. Sarah covered her mouth instantly and started to cry. I couldn't hold back my tears hearing her sobs. The police immediately began their investigation. That day stretched into a long interrogation, and we weren't released until the next morning. I woke up my daughter, who had been sleeping in the police station's break room, and we went home. Within a week, the police had mostly figured out who the culprit was. Apparently, they found hairs not belonging to my husband with the excavated remains. Forensic analysis traced them back to a woman named Emily. For the first time in my life, I truly hated someone. Dark emotions swirled inside me. But the shocks from the police kept coming. Emily, the suspect, had been in a traffic accident at around the time I discovered Justin. She had been in critical condition for about a week, but had passed away just yesterday. Sarah shook her head. She hadn't been contacted because Emily had no identification on her. The case made national news. Then, more information came flooding in from around the country, leading to the arrest of a man Emily had been dating at the time. The news portrayed him as the direct murderer of my husband. He reportedly confessed to having been coerced into it by an acquaintance. Watching the news, I slammed the table in anger.
Calm down, please.
Sarah said, likely finding it hard to say anything more forceful. Of course, we had been informed by the police beforehand.
Mommy? I heard a loud noise. What happened?
It was already 11 p.m. Feeling guilty for waking my daughter, I regained my composure. I woke you up, sorry. Mommy just dropped my phone. Oh yeah, I still have her. I hugged my daughter tightly and let the tears flow. I'll protect her for both myself and Justin. I'll live with all my heart and soul. It's okay. Justin is in my heart. I hope he continues to watch over us from close by. With the three of us, we can surely overcome anything.